David Smith here with yet one more flipped classroom math lesson. 3 tips before we start. First, remember that you can slow down or speed up the playback to suit your needs. Second, you can pause the video at any point to catch up with your notes or jot down questions. Third, you can turn on the captions and read my words on the screen. Okay, today's lesson is on relations and functions. And truly, we're going to spend our time in this chapter on functions. But understanding relations is the entry point for learning about functions. Also know that this lesson has a lot of definitions in it. So just be aware of that. Make sure you understand the terms, and if you have questions, bring them to class. Okay, so let's start. So a relation is a way to represent a relationship between two variables. And this is something we do in mathematics a lot. We have two variable equations, y equals 3x plus 9, things like that. And they get more complicated. So there's 4 ways we can show a relation. One, you can show it as a set of ordered pairs. So here's just a random set of ordered pairs. This is a relation that's mapping x and y, okay? Just a set. The second way is we can map. Okay, so this example is not the same as this one in case you're looking closely. So by mapping, what we do is we just show that the x of -2 maps onto the positive 2 of y, -1 maps onto 3, 0 onto 4, 1 onto 5, 2 onto 6, like that. So that's mapping. You'll see diagrams like this in your book. By a graph. So the graph is just taking this mapping and putting it on the graph, and we have a linear equation here, so we've got a straight line. So that's another way to represent a relation. Finally, by showing an equation. So this line that's shown up, or this relation shown up in this line in this map, can also be shown by this equation, y equals x plus 4. So number 2, 3, and 4, these 3 methods here show the same relation 3 different ways. Okay, let's talk about types of relations. There's 3 I want to discuss here. Let's take a look at this first one. Notice how each x maps onto a distinct y. So there's a 1-to-1 correspondence between the x's and the y's. So this one is called 1 to 1. And if you wanted to pause the video, you can figure out the equation that's going to map these onto these. This is a linear equation. We're not going to go into that, but linear equations are 1-to-1 relations. For every x, there is exactly 1 y. Okay? Now, let's take a look at this one. This is a little bit different. Notice how the -2 maps onto 4. This function here is y equals x squared. I mean, this relation is y equals x squared. So you can see that -2 maps onto 4, but so does +2, because both these numbers squared yield 4. The same with 1 and -1. They both map onto 1, so that gives us this interesting mapping. And then finally, 0 maps directly onto 0. So this one is called a many-to-one. And that's because many values, namely these 2, map to 1 y. So that's a many-to-one, and any quadratic equation is going to have a many-to-one relationship. Okay, let's take a look at this one over here. Now in this case, 0 maps to 0, but 1 can map either to 1 or -1, and 4 can map either to 2 or -2. So this one is called a one-to-many. So these are 3 types of relations that we're going to look at. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on and define what a function is. Okay, let's do that now. Here's our definition of a function. It's a relation. So all functions are also relations, but not all relations are functions. Okay, so just hold that in your mind for a minute. So a function is a relation in which every element in the first set, which would be the x values in these mapping diagrams, every element in the first set is paired with exactly 1 element in the second set. Okay, so when you look at these, this one fits that definition, because this element is paired with only 1 element in the second set. So 1-to-1 works. Many-to-one works also, because the -2 only maps to the 4. Then the 1 only maps to the 1. So many to one fits this definition. But check out, one to many does not, because one here will map to more than one element in the second set. One can be either 1 or -1. 4 can map to either 2 or -2. So this relation is not a function. So this one is a function. This one is a function. And this one is a relation. So this section is dealing with functions. So relations were our way in, but we're going to work on functions. Now you want to keep in mind the difference because you might be asked a couple questions here and there. Is this a function or is this a relation? Okay, let's do a more practical problem, one that you might see in your textbook. And again, this is a little bit terminology heavy, and I don't think all of it makes intuitive sense, so tune in real close so that you get the instructions right when you do these on homeworks or on tests and quizzes. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use a function to map to a new set. Okay, so set A is these 4 numbers. Your mapping instructions are x arrow 2x squared minus 1. So what that means is that if this is, okay, actually let me back up a second. The instruction here is to find B, which is a set, onto which set A is mapped. Now, this is getting kind of dense language. It's not really spelled out in a sort of a step-by-step way. But what they're telling you to do is take every element in set A, run it through these instructions, and what comes out is your set B. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to walk through one, and then I want you to pause the video and finish it off. So to get 3, we do -3. To get it, I'm going to do 2 times -3 squared minus 1. -3 squared is 9 times 2 is 18, minus 1 is 17. So -3 maps to 17. So what I'm going to start over here is I'm going to start filling in my set B. My first element is 17. So I'm taking A, I'm running each element of A through the mapping instructions, and like so, and it spits out a number, and that's the element, the corresponding element in set B. So go ahead and pause the video and do the remaining mapping for these 3. Okay, let's see how you did. Here's my notation for doing the mappings. Here are my results, and I went ahead and filled them in the set B. So if you're struggling with this, maybe pause the video, work that again, make sure that you can get these results. Okay, so here's my mapping diagram, showing with my arrows which each of the set A elements maps onto in the set B. So this should be pretty familiar with you now. Here's my question. Is this a function or not? So pause the video and think about that. It is a relation because we're mapping A's onto B's, A onto B. So it is a relation, but is it a function? Does it follow the definition we did on the last board for a function? Okay, if you thought about that, if you answered it is a function, you're correct, because this is a many-to-one relation. Because we got these 2 numbers, the many maps to the 1 of 7, and that's okay. So this is a function because it is many to 1. Now that you've watched the video, jot down some notes or questions for our next class. You can also re-watch the portions of the video that you didn't understand so well the first time. If you enjoyed the video, please click like, and if you'd like to help me grow my YouTube channel, please click subscribe.